Next on Knight Rider, Michael and KITT face a gauntlet of death to save a beautiful engineer from a killer tank.
We're driving right into his line of fire.
An explosive Knight Rider next.
Production 58643, Buyout. This episode was written by Gregory S. Dinallo and directed by Jeffrey Hayden. It originally aired on NBC Sunday night 8 p.m. on February 10th, 1985. It was the 56th episode to air, but the 60th episode to be produced. The synopsis reads as follows. Michael and KITT investigate the explosion of a supposedly indestructible armored limousine. And with that, let's dig in. We open with a man driving the limousine through the test, the limousine that would ultimately be destroyed, which sets off the whole episode. This, of course, is second unit director and stuntman Jack Gill, and he makes numerous uncredited appearances throughout the series. In fact, we did a video last year on trying to find out if Jack Gill can be spotted in every single Knight Rider episode. It's a really, really cool video. You need to go back and take a look at it. According to the script, his character's name is Ray Jordan. But of course, he has no speaking lines, and we only see him in this brief scene before he's blown to bits. Also returning to the Knight Rider universe, we have Robin Dearden. Here she plays Melanie Mitchell, but she had previously appeared in Season 1's Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death as Liberty Cox, and this is her second and final appearance. So according to the internet, which never lies, this machine, this armor-built machine that we see in this episode is in reality a somewhat heavily modified BRDM-2, an amphibious armored scout car used in the former Soviet Union, built from the 60s through 1989, I believe. According to Wikipedia, this armored car was heavily exported, which probably explains why it most likely wasn't too hard for them to get a copy or two for this episode. Actually, a couple copies. If you look in the armor-built parking lot later on in the episode, you'll see there's a couple of these parked there. But that's what this is, a former Soviet Union-era armored vehicle. And right before the limousine is exploded, we get this close-up shot of this rotating missile launcher, and this is reused footage from Mouth of the Snake. If you remember in Mouth of the Snake, towards the end of the episode, they had the semi-truck and trailer, and in the back of the trailer was this missile launcher, and you can even see in this close-up that it's sitting in the back of a trailer. So this is just reused footage from that episode. Okay, so many people have asked me about this. In the beginning of Buyout, the first time we see Michael and KITT, there's a musical montage, and that's kind of what this screenshot is representing. This is part of that musical montage. We see KITT driving through, the outskirts of town in the wilderness, things like that, and we hear this music playing, which sounds like it could be a sound-alike of a popular song. When I say sound-alike, for those of you who aren't familiar, anytime you heard a popular song or a song played in Knight Rider, it wasn't actually the original artist playing. Don Peake, who was the composer for Knight Rider at this point, actually brought in singers and recreated all of those songs. Some of them are most of them actually are really, really good. You'd have a hard time telling if it was the original artist or not. But anyways, and they did that for monetary reasons. It was much more cost effective to re-record the songs than to try and license the originals. But anyways, in this episode, and actually I believe in the beginning of Nightlines, if I'm not mistaken, they play this piece of music, which sounds like it could be an instrumental part of an actual popular song. In reality, it was not at all. It was completely Don Peake's own creation. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the song, we actually have the original studio recording of this piece. So let's just play it now for you, because so many of you have asked for this music without, the background sounds and things like that. So here's a little treat for you. Here is the actual studio recording of this piece of music that everyone seems to love. I do too.
58643 M102, take 1. Save it.
Moving forward, we see an insert shot of Michael here. This is the insert car. And if you look up at the roof, we mentioned this in a previous episode, we still have this thing where there's some blue fabric, like a blue rag, hanging out where the buttons for the overhead console should be. Again, I think that was to catch any moisture, because this was a hardtop car and it had a working T-top. They put a mechanism to make a working T-top. Pretty sure it wasn't waterproof, so in the rare occasions when it rained out there, I'm pretty sure that water seeped in. So that was probably their way of kind of protecting the interior. That would be my best guess. Also, if you take a look in the reflection of Hasselhoff's glasses, you see these white dots. These are some of the 9 lights that they mounted on the outside of the insert car to project in to light the inside of the car. So there's 2 of them that you can see there. And I don't know if you can see this. You see Hasselhoff, look at him sweating right there. It was, from what we've heard, so hot in these cars, because it was California, right? And the windows were up, so there wouldn't be sound distortion. And they had these 9 giant lights pointed in on the car. So it was like a toaster oven inside of there. We do have evidence that they did try and outfit some of these cars with a rudimentary air conditioning setup, but it was only so effective. So that's what you're seeing here. Those are some of those 9 lights. That's Hasselhoff sweat. It was stinking hot in there. For those of you curious, they actually used 8 Trans Ams in this episode. We have the roll cage acrylic windowed jump car, the season 3 hero car. We actually have the season 2 insert car. The original season, it was in season 1, it was the backup to the hero car. Season 2 is the insert car. This car, which is one of the 2 that we own, really wasn't used too much after the beginning of season 3. We saw it in KITT versus Car, as Car coming out of the sand with the high traction drop downs. But it's really used very infrequently in these last 2 seasons, but we do see it in this episode. The right-hand blind drive car, the hardtop stunt car, another kind of general purpose T-top stunt car that'll be with us through the end of the series, a left-hand blind drive, the left-hand blind drive car, and this season 3 insert car. There's your 8. So Michael pulls into Armor Belt. In reality, this is on Earl Street in Torrance, California. We can see another one of those. Actually, this looks like maybe a different style armored type vehicle there. But as we pull in, we can see we've got one here. We've got this one here. We've got another one back here. They all look a little bit different. So maybe different models there. But this building is actually was the headquarters for Parnell Jones Racing. And what's more ironic is there's actually a reference to Parnell Jones in the episode from the main bad guy in this episode, Gene Hansen. Take a listen.
It doesn't mean you can drive, none of it.
Doesn't mean I can't either. Try me.
Boy, that's typical. Give a guy a hot-looking car, he thinks he's the next Parnell Jones.
So I don't know if that was planned or just a fortunate circumstance, but it was pretty cool that the actual building they're used is owned by Parnell Jones, and Gene Hansen mentions Parnell Jones. So as I said, this building is still there today. It now appears to be some kind of a hospital or an outpatient type of building. But if you'll notice, we have all of these garage doors on the side, and we've got a little man door here. So if we open this up, this is what the building looks like from an aerial shot. This is the parking lot right here where all of the action takes place. So if we come in here and drop our little guy, let's move forward a hair. So right here. So you can see this was all of these garage doors have been closed in, and now there are all these windows here. And there's that man door that we saw just at the edge of the other picture. So this is now like a outpatient type of medical facility. But this is the parking lot where KITT pulls in. In terms of where the upcoming test, the audition that Michael and KITT do, I don't think it was in this parking lot. It might have been. It's hard to say. I think it might have been over here, because this was all, I think, Parnell Jones property. So it might have been back here, one of these two locations, but it was definitely on this property. So we move inside. This is still that very same location for Armor Built, which, by the way, in the original script, it was actually called Armor Clad, not Armor Built. But anyways, what do we see here? More of these armored vehicles. They must have had a whole fleet of them here. There's that burnt out limo. But in the background here, we've got tons of pieces, rented pieces from, once again, modern props. That's what all these are. A lot of these are ones I don't think we have seen before in Knight Rider, and I'm not sure we see after. These are all kind of unique pieces, but these are all from modern props. And this is the actual scene I was talking about earlier where Gene Hansen mentions Parnell Jones. But I wanted to talk about the guy that plays Gene Hansen just for a second. His name's Clu Gallagher. And he actually starred in the same year, in 1984, in a movie called Prime Risk. And guess who else starred in Prime Risk? Patricia McPherson. And for good measure, also in that episode was Tony Hudson, who played Maxine Fleming in Night by a Nose. So it was a little Knight Rider type reunion, all in 1984. All that happened in 1984. So I believe that movie is on YouTube if you want to check it out. We also showed some clips of it in our filmography of Patricia McPherson video that we did quite a few months back. And interestingly enough, the character named Gene Hansen is the exact same name as an uncredited writer from the previous episode, Junkyard Dog. Again, could be a coincidence or maybe not. All right, we've got another really cool thing here to show you. So we are now at the test track. And Michael and KITT are auditioning for Armor Built to prove that he could be the next limo driver. So what do we see here? This is the hardtop stunt car. And I know that because, well, for a number of reasons, mainly because we have production documents behind this episode that show that this is that car. But if you look here, once again, there's that tab. And might be the best look at that tab that we ever get. This, for those of you who haven't heard in some of my previous commentaries, this was the mounting tab that was welded onto the bottom of certain Trans Ams so it could mount the side pipes for the season 2 episode custom kit. And that's what that tab is right there. There is, out of all the remaining Knight Rider cars that survive today, one of them, the right-hand blind drive car now, still has those tabs in it, which is really cool. All right, but this is what I think is really neat. So we see them going around the test track. If you zoom in on KITT right here, it's really hard to see, but this rear quarter has been hit and damaged. And in fact, it even looks like a piece of the blackout right here is missing, right? It looks like that snapped off when this rear quarter got hit. But it gets cooler than that. Check this out. Here are the production notes for this episode and for this filming day. These are basically a summary of what happened on the filming of that day. Take a look at this. Trans Am, and it's referencing the hardtop stunt car here. Trans Am suffered rear fender damage when the car slid into some truck parts, Parnell Jones property, along the edge of the test track course in scene 28. That's what you see there. Trans Am, and it mentions another Trans Am was brought from the studio to replace the hardtop stunt car. And my absolute favorite production note I think I've ever seen. Location complained of extensive skid marks. How awesome is that? Because if we move forward here, yeah, so you can definitely see the damage on the hardtop stunt car there. It's pinched. You can even see the body line right here is pinched. But now all of a sudden, we're using a different car. We're actually using the right-hand blind drive car. Once again, you think they would have learned their lesson after Junkyard Dog when it got seriously damaged, but here they are using the right-hand blind drive car to finish the test track portion of it. And I don't know why, because you got a driver in the seat. It should have been a different car, but it wasn't. But this is the right-hand blind drive car. And for those of you who watched the Junkyard Dog commentary, you noticed I mentioned about how the whole front end was damaged and they had to replace the impact bar, which meant they had to put new fog lights in. And this isn't the best shot, it's a little foggy, but you can see now how the front end of this car, the fog lights aren't all pushed towards the center with a big gap on the sides. They've redesigned it, and when they did, they put the fog lights kind of more in the middle and spaced them out. So this will be the look that this car has until the end of the series, actually. Even this front bumper, even this season 2 and 3 front bumper with the indents, this car actually maintains that bumper even in season 4 when the bumper's redesigned. It's one of 2 cars that retains the earlier style bumper. The rest of them are upgraded to the George Barris designed more angular rubber front nose. And this most likely would be the extensive skid marks that Parnell Jones was complaining about. We move ahead to this scene. Michael is meeting the buyers in hopes to change their mind to come back and see a second test. This was filmed at Universal Studios, and in fact, this is the same location that we see in Voodoo Night, where Harana's party is, and I think we see it in a couple other episodes. I know Ring of Fire, we see it. I'm sorry, not Ring of Fire, Return to Cadiz. We see it when Michael and Kit are getting ready to chase the ambulance, and a few other episodes. So the redesign of the dash and the overhead console for season 3 basically took away buttons and replaced them with a lot of LEDs. And you can see that here. So Michael, or Hasselhoff, is pretending to press buttons, but these are actually 10 millimeter by 20 millimeter LEDs that are not pressable. What's interesting to note is, and for those of you who have seen Michael Chaffee's presentation in person, one of the images he shows is a drawing of the redesigned overhead console. And in that drawing, he labels these not as buttons, but actually circuit breakers. I know these ones especially for sure. So these weren't meant to be pressable. These were meant to be indicators for circuit breakers. But I don't think that translated into the actual production of the show, and we see that they're used as buttons. And we see it a couple times in the series. So even though Jack Gill died in the limousine at the beginning of the episode, here he actually is being a stunt performer during this fight with Hasselhoff. All right, and then we move forward. We've got Eddie Deskey here trying to purchase KITT. And in the original script, there was actually a different character that was trying to purchase KITT named Lonnie Londell, an automobile circus performer who happened to be driving by the test track when Michael and KITT were auditioning. He stopped and wanted to buy KITT. They cut his character and instead just transferred it to an armor build employee, which I think absolutely makes more sense. And if you look here, you can see some reflections of some of the camera equipment here. We see a vehicle here, a guy standing here, and then a light right here. Once again, we see a fabulous insert shot here, and we saw this same text in a previous episode. Was it Night of the Chameleon? I think it might have been. What the heck, the jury decision to deny Mayor Smith his choice of, and then it cuts off, these and other stories can be seen on the Amazing Canterbury Stories. So just a nice little in-joke there. And then it scrolls and we see Night Industries 2000 loaded and ready. Okay. All right, so what do we see here? This is the left-hand blind drive car. freshly repainted black after its primer look in Junkyard Dog. And what's interesting to note is here, this is Michael's locked in the paint booth and summons KITT. KITT, this is him starting to self-drive and drive away, and we can see this is, like I said, the left-hand blind drive car. And actually, you can see there's a tab on that car too, right there. You can just barely see the tab. Anyways, but then it cuts to this scene. Now it's the right-hand blind drive car, and in fact, you can see whoever was doing it forgot to change into a tan shirt. They've got a bright pink shirt on, it looks like, but that's the right-hand blind drive car, and you can see the flap just trying to cover their body there. And then we come to the inside, and now we're back to the left-hand blind drive car. And this, of course, is not Clu Gallagher, or a.k.a. Gene Hansen. This is a stunt guy. You can tell by the awful powdered wig there. One of the things we like to do is compare map locations with actual filming locations to see, do they actually line up? So, at this point in the episode, Michael and KITT have just left Armor Belt, and it shows them heading on this route, and the ultimate destination is going to be the test track where they have the climax of the episode. But that test track was actually Indian Dunes in Castaic, California, which is no longer there, unfortunately. But I wanted to compare the location of Armor Belt to this map to the test track and see if it's if it makes sense, I guess. So we see that this dot is heading northeast on this road, which is Chevy Chase Drive in Glendale. So let's take a look at the map. So they started down here at Armor Belt on Earl Street in Torrance. So to go to where it shows on the map in Glendale, they would go up this route. They go up 110, and it shows them right here. But then Indian Dunes was all the way up here, past Santa Clarita. So technically, I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not the most direct way from Armor Belt to the test track. If they were in reality going from Armor Belt to the test track, they would take this route up the 405. All right, moving on. Interesting note here. We're starting to see more of the newly redesigned California license plates. No longer is it blue with yellow letters. At this point, it's white with blue letters and the California sun at the top. We're starting to see more of that come into play in the series now that we're in the year 1984. They never updated KITT's plate, and I don't know if that was on purpose. My guess is they probably wanted to leave it alone specifically for the ability to reuse old footage, right? Because that, of course, there's so many inconsistencies with that, they might not care. But they probably just didn't want to change the look. And frankly, I don't think a white plate on KITT would look nearly as good as the blue on yellow. So look in the background here, and we've got a Chevy step van, aka the Comtron truck, one of the Comtron trucks. We see this way back in the pilot. It was used to haul crew supplies to the set. And we have the hardtop stunt car getting nice and filthy here, which you don't see too often in the show. And here's the roll cage acrylic window jump car making a jump over or through the armored vehicle. It's interesting because most of the times whenever they do a turbo boost, they really do a good job in trying to hide any type of ramps. And they did in a sense here, but it's always meant to look like KITT was jumping from completely flat terrain up into the air. But here they built up this dirt around the ramp to kind of hide it, but it makes it look like KITT didn't even need turbo boost. He could have just hit that ramp, which in fact he did. But as we move forward, we see that the hardtop stunt or the roll cage acrylic window jump car takes out the top of this armored vehicle. We can see the skid plate underneath, and as it comes in here, if you take a look, they actually have a crash camera right here, and as we look a little closer, we can see that the car is about to take it out. So this footage right here was filmed using this camera, and then KITT hits that right there. And actually the scene cuts, but it looks like the car doesn't quite make the landing where this ramp is. It looks like it comes up a little short, so there was nothing in the production notes to say that there was severe damage to this car because it came up short and, hit this armored vehicle. So it must have been all right, but it sure looked like it was not going to hit that ramp. And we end the episode with this beautiful, beautiful shot of the left-hand blind drive car. I hope you enjoyed this episode. That's all we've got for Buyout today. Next time, we're going to be digging into night lines. We are rapidly closing in on the end of Season 3.